We're talking about fundamental rights that are being trampled upon in many states. And this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. This literally is an American issue. This issue of free and fair elections are one of the most important pillars of our democracy. And we're seeing efforts to weaken it.
The vice president is leading the administration's effort to protect voting rights. So far, federal legislation appears DOA in the water in the Senate. Democratic state lawmakers who staged that walkout to block that Texas bill restricting voting in Texas, they'll be in Washington tomorrow to lobby for the passage of the For the People Act. They will meet with the Senate Democratic caucus before a meeting with Vice President Harris on Wednesday. Still with us, Cornell Belcher and A.B. Stoddard. So, Cornell, this is a snarky way to put it, but the Texas Democrats might as well commiserate with the Senate Democrats. They have righteousness and virtue on their side. What both of them lack is the math.
No, well, I think that's right. But I also think there's something more fundamentally problematic, Brian. That is, how do you get, and this is something that President Obama used to talk about all the time, is how do you get the broader swath of Americans to have skin in this game? Look, poll after poll shows Americans, or the majority of Americans, not a 50-50 proposition, the solid majority of Americans are for the voting rights bill and this new legislation to protect the sanctity of our democracy. But can Democrats flip that and turn Republicans' obstruction of it into a win for them going into the midterms? The greatest trick that Mitch McConnell and Republicans have done is, in fact, we saw it under Obama too, and many Democrats are saying, Brian, this smells like 2010 coming all over again, which was a catastrophe. Is simply to block everything Democrats try to do, and to our earlier point, have the base of the Democratic Party de-energized and frustrated and not turn out. The question is, can Democrats finally turn this and use this offensively, like what the vast majority of Americans actually want to do? Can we hold Republicans' feet to the fire for blocking this, for blocking infrastructure, for blocking voting rights? And I'll say this, my last point on this, Brian, is Democrats have to make this not a minority issue. And I think too often the talking points around this are about minorities being blocked from the ballot box. Democrats have to take a page from Republicans, and middle America has to be scared as hell of what the consequences are going to be for them and their children if we lose on these fights. If voting access is blocked, and if we have elections overturned that we know are legitimate, the day of middle America is scared as hell about what's going to happen in this country. That's the day that Democrats will prevail on this and politically in the midterms.
A.B., that's a man whose life's work has been understanding voters and how to tailor the message to certain voters. And Democrats at the party level, if they're smart, will listen to those words just spoken. To you, A.B., because I know Joe Manchin is your favorite topic, your reaction to Pelosi saying she's, quote, not giving up on getting Manchin to support the For the People Act.
Well, I think it's impressive that House Speaker recently said that she wasn't giving up on Senate Republicans either on getting behind a commission to investigate January 6th and the worst assault on the Capitol since the Civil War. And surely they walked right off the cliff in lockstep and refused to back it. But I appreciate her sunny optimism. Joe Manchin aside, as we discussed last week, Cornell is right. This whole problem with the For the People Act and dealing with all of the voting restriction bills passed around the country by state legislatures, by Republicans, is that we really can't be looking at the vote casting. And a lot of Democratic messaging has been on that. We have to focus on the vote counting and how corruptible it will be with the passage of these bills, how partisan and potentially rigged it will be. There's a lot of talk about water bottles and a lot of talk about closing windows for requesting an absentee ballot and how that disenfranchises voters of color. And that is true. The problem is that they have allowed this process to be completely partisan and corruptible. And we might have looked at our last free and fair election as a result. I think Cornell is right. You need to alarm voters about this in that way. And I agree with Bill Kristol, who told you last week, why don't the Democrats in a PR campaign just pass a different component of this every week and just talk to the American people about what the different components are and how scary it will be if a bunch of corrupt politicians take over a process in a state and don't count lawfully cast votes. That's where the focus has to be. Right now, Democrats, while the house is on fire, the barn is on fire, the whole farm is lighting a flame, are fussing about the perfect firefighter. If they lose the chance to pass a passable voting rights bill, they'll lose the midterm elections and they won't have to worry about infrastructure bills from now on because they won't be back in power.